welcome to the Inside Britball podcast. My name's Andy Taylor. We don't have a full house this week. We're joined by Stuart and Isaac. Kiwi gets the week off because we aren't talking about flag this week. We are only talking about BUCS, the results preview and the results review and the preview to this weekend, with lots of playoff implications on the line. But we do have some news that we want to get to that landed today, and we'll get to that in a second. A bit of a tease there for you. So we will have Kiwi back next week for sure, as we start to build up for the WFFL stuff, and we've got plenty of flag news to get to as well, with new coach appointments and the like. So definitely a lot to get to, but we are chomping at the bit to get to the news that landed today from the British American Football Association Competition Management Committee, or whatever you want to call them, a la Joe Walker. But what we did get was something that we were waiting for, which was the announcement of the postseason of adult contact format. I had guessed that it was something to do with play-ins. I had said it to Stuart. I've got the text to prove it. I did guess that it would be that, because I know it's something that has been battered about for a while now. It's something that I was working on as almost like a big piece, big sort of article to produce, but it's completely useless now. So let's not bother with that article. Let's just talk about it instead, because it's already happened. So, to round up what the news was that landed today, was that no longer will there be a bowl game or a Brit Bowl final for Division 1 and Division 2. That game will now be replaced by what is commonly referred to as a play-in, isn't it? So it's where the team that's going to be relegated from the tier or division above is going to play a playoff game against the winner of the Northern Conference or Southern Conference of that division, right? Bit of a funny tweak this year, which we'll get to in a second, but that's kind of what we're expecting is going to happen at the end of this season. Bit of a funny tweak is that we've obviously got only 5 teams in the Prem North at the moment, due to Edinburgh Wolves pulling out and presumably somebody not wanting to go up. So the winner of that Northern final in the NFC 1 will go up automatically, and the loser will then play the 5th place team in the North Prem, which is a bit weird, but that is the caveat for 2025. Whereas for the rest of the other guys, it is bottom of the league plays the winner of those playoffs, and the games are going to take place closest to the winner of those finals, is my understanding. But Stuart can correct me, because he's been able to ingest it as much as I have today. It's hot off the press for sure. So before we have a look at what that would have meant if it was last year, because it's always good to kind of paint that picture based on the season that we already know. Stuart, you were the one who sniffed it coming down the line. We were all ready for it. We'd already sort of expected it to happen, because we were like, oh, it's going to be about this. Why would they change it? What would they be changing? We kind of knew that actually there's got to be a real shake-up. Is it going to be playing? So we were kind of poised for that sort of thing, weren't we? And we managed to get the information out on our website and across socials. So what was your initial reaction? Because I feel as if within our group chat, we were kind of like not surprised at all. But obviously it is a big shake-up, isn't it, going into the off-season of 2025?
Yeah, I mean, we've all had plenty of experience around the Britball community, so we've heard of ideas being bandied around changes, and does this work? Will that work? Should this happen? When can this happen? Yeah, my initial thoughts, I think it's probably the right time to do it. I think we've now found a level of parity across our adult contact divisions, whereby this will give us the equal playoff picture upwards and downwards, to use BAFA's words. So when we get the teams in the North and the South finals, those winners obviously playing the bottom place teams in the Premiership. Slightly different this year. It'd be probably more normal next year when we get that equilibrium of 6 teams. And then, Div 2 upwards and Div 1 downwards. Again, I'm trying to use BAFA terminology and keep it constant. Again, I think we'll get some form of parity because we saw 2 teams go up and a big rejig, didn't we? Sort of down in the South with divisions there. So, yeah, I think it's the right time. I think it's been well thought through. Will the teams see it that way? I don't think so, because they will probably see it as they're missing out on a bowl game, which I get. Having been in a couple, it's a great spectacle. But who's to say you can't make your Northern final and your Southern final just as much of a bowl game as BAFA made the Division 1 and the Division 2 bowl games at Brit Bowl weekend, right? If you can find a venue, you can work with the other team. BAFA have said that subsidies are going to be put out for certain games. Utilise that and try and put on a showcase event.
Interesting, and I know, Isaac, you've got obviously a slightly differing opinion to all of this. Obviously, you're a current player, and you're heavily involved in that community right now, actively. What's sort of like your initial reaction, and have you managed to garner any reaction from others within either your team or in the community?
I haven't had any reaction from anyone else, but my instant reaction to it was, I'm against it. Right. Looking at association football, it's relegation promotion happens based on where you finish in the league, and I believe that should be the same for American football. I believe if you finish the bottom of your division, you shouldn't be given another chance to play against a side who's gone through a playoffs, played more games than you, going to be more tired than you are, a lot more fatigued, for you then to get one shot to go and beat them. I think it should basically just be on your performance throughout the season. If you were that good, you'd be in the playoff yourself, in a way. I think it helps with the Prem North, with it being 5 teams. I understand that. It's a bit like what we're expecting from the BUCS Prem National, where, that is an elite group. One team has to come out, one has to go in. That kind of more makes sense. Whereas with the Prem North, I don't understand why it needed changing, if I'm honest. I know that there were a lot of rejigging of conferences and divisions and all sorts, but realistically, I don't see the need to change from what has worked.
Yeah, it's interesting. I try and take almost like a CSI approach to some of these decisions and try and think as the why, and almost try and take the emotion out of it as much as I can, because I've always thought, is that going to be a helpful method? And I have tried to write about it as well, so it is something that I've thought of quite a bit. I think that the main thing for me is that look at where we were this year, which may or may not be a common occurrence, but look at where we were in the Prem North with 2 very down teams. Now, in other situations, you get that this year, but in other situations, like probably this season, where we can't pick pre-season who may or may not be going down from the Prem North this year. There's 5 really good teams on the surface of it, isn't there? And it would be a shame to see one of them automatically go down when actually they're still much better than a Division 1 team. And I do wonder what sort of implications that'll have on the gaps between Division 1 and Prem and Division 2 and Division 1. Will it actually identify those who are deserving of going up based on their quality, their team's performance, and making sure that they fit in their upper division before making that jump? Because I worry that there are a number of teams that have probably been offered to go up into the Prem this year and have decided not to, and there will probably be a number of teams like we've seen across Division 1 where they've been offered to go up to Division 1 and they've snapped at it. Certainly when I was involved in fixtures with BAFA, when you offered that handout to go into to Division 1, Division 2 teams snapped your hand off and went, yeah, absolutely, and we want to be up there. So, it's a difficult one. I do worry about the not being able to go to a final and what that means for participation. How do you feel as a player, Isaac, knowing that you don't get a final, you get another playoff game?
I think it kind of, for Division 1 and 2 teams especially, it'll be kind of like, well, what's the end goal for the season? To maybe play against the Prem side and hopefully beat them. Whereas the Prem get the playoffs, they get the glitz and the glamour, and if they've worked hard enough, you know what I mean, they can be in a final. I think not having the final just makes a lot of players will think, well, what's the point? Well, I'm not going to be able to go play in front of my friends and family. I'm going to get my extended family down to come and watch me at a pretty much professional stadium in BUCS Park. But unless these playing games are going to happen on the same weekend, or I don't know. It feels now like the season's never going to end, because you start off, your first ones is in April. They're normally like April time, March time, and you're going to finish in the back end of September by the looks of it, because of all the extra playoff games, and you got playing games and all sorts. So as a player, especially if you're over the hill a little bit, it's going to look like a daunting task to try and get through the end of the season.
I'll play devil's advocate to that, though, Isaac.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like, the bowl games tended to be almost pointless games anyway, because both teams had already been promoted. So surely all of your effort goes into the Northern Final and the Southern Final to get yourself promoted. The bowl game is kind of just a big showcase event. Whereas
but then,
if you make the Northern and the Southern Final the showcase event, you get kind of that double celebration of, yeah, great, we've won the final. Yeah, great, we've been in a showcase event. And then you get the playoff game after that, as well as like kind of the cherry on the icing on top of the cake.
Yeah, but and to go back on that, it's a thing of, you're gonna have a side. So, for example, let's say if it was the end of last season and it was the Merseyside Nighthawks against the Nottingham Caesars, do you know what I mean? It'd be the side who has struggled all season long against the side who has dominated the game, and it's not as much as a celebration anymore. It turns into, like, that weekend is a celebration of all ages of American football and all skill levels and all divisions, and it kind of takes that away. I know a lot of people who might not even have any interest in the teams playing, but will still go just to watch American football and be a part of that community, because we are a close-knit community. And I think if you start taking that away, and the competitiveness of it, even though they may be pointless, you still get a trophy at the end of the day, and it's a massive thing to see your Division 1 champions or your Division 2 champions. Whereas now you're taking that away a little bit by not playing that.
I get it. I was just playing devil's advocate again.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a fair point and fair conversation to have, because I was part of the Nighthawks at the point I came in, just as they had been promoted to the Prem, and the players and the coaches talked for years about their unbeaten year, and going to 2 Division 1 finals and beating them, and and not being allowed up into the Prem first time around and doing it a second time around. And they did make a big song and dance about winning Division 1 twice, and I think certainly if you're a team on the up and you're about to finish that year, and your final game is that final, as a player, then that is a pinnacle, and it's an event for you to be proud of, isn't it? Certainly if I was a player and I got to travel to BUCS Park and play in front of, I don't know, was it 700 people, 500 people, something like that?
Yeah,
that would be something I would never have experienced. JMO might have 100 people at it, and I think that's a bit of a shame. I wonder though whether there would, if we polled all of British American football, all of Britball, I reckon club volunteers, club run, people who run clubs will be on one side of the fence, I wonder if all coaches would be on the fence and all players would be on the opposite side for the people who run the clubs. I don't know. I could be completely wrong, but I was wondering we should probably engage with the likes of Colchester, Samwell, Rushmore, Nottingham, who are going to be effectively this year those people that are affected. Because for them, what did the bowl game mean, and how would their season changed had, as you say, Isaac, Caesars were playing Merseyside, or in Nottingham, wherever it was decided to be, and that would have been a tough game. Caesars were a very good side this year, right? So I just wonder, financially, obviously this has a huge implication as well, doesn't it? Because you no longer have to travel to Coventry, unless you're Coventry Phoenix, of course. Then you don't have to travel to Coventry now, do you, to take part in a bowl game? It's presumably hosted at a local side. You have that less travel. I suppose it's a less of a cost to British American Football Association of the finals, presumably. Stuart, I don't know whether you've got any insight there, but it feels like that there is a bit of a balancing act there when it comes to the amount of money spent on Britball weekend, as well as the cost to the team.
Yeah, I mean, I guess inevitably that's what people's eyes are on, isn't it? Like if you're losing a bowl, if you're losing Div 1 bowl and Div 2 bowl, you kind of don't have to hire out a facility as BAFA for probably 2 days. You just do it for 1 day because you're only looking at adult contact final, NWFL women's contact. You could potentially get the U19s because they play on a full-size pitch. But after that, you don't really need a full-size pitch for any of our other finals. So you're probably hiring out a venue. I'm not just going to specify BUCS Park here, but a venue for 2 days. You can do it in one. And then, yeah, the other side of the coin is BAFA have put in their game logistics piece that they will support hosting teams by covering the BAFA fees, which are not cheap because you get 7 or 8 officials at the bigger bowl games. And they're also going to subsidise travel for away teams. So the money that they're kind of saving, I'll put in inverted commas, on hiring the venue, they're still going to spend for the other games anyway. So, everybody wants to see where their player fees are going. Read the little print, read the small print, read the logistics. It's not just being, oh, great, we're going to save, plucking a round figure out the sky. We're going to save £1,000 by not hiring BUCS Park for 1 day. But that £1,000 might be 500 to BAFA for that game, 500 to BAFA for that game. That's your £1,000 just shifted rather than saved. So, you say, put a poll up in a group. There's always 2 sides to the coin. There's always going to be 2 sides to the argument, and you're just going to pick one based on probably what position you are in the club. So, we've put it all out on the socials. We have posted on one of our stories saying, give your comments, pop your comments below, pop your comments in a DM, pop your comments in the IBB Facebook group that we've got. Let's start discussion. Let's have these healthy discussions so that this can kind of feed back to the people that run the sport. They mentioned that this is all stemming from a questionnaire that was sent out. Well, that questionnaire is sent out to sort of team management. Everybody's got a voice. I'm losing mine, ironically. Everybody's got a voice in the sport. Let's use it. So what are your thoughts? Get them in the IBB Facebook group.
Yeah, let's play a game though, because we're ultimately we are fans, aren't we? We are fans of the sport. So let's play a game. What would you rather? Okay, would you rather Merseyside Nighthawks versus Nottingham Caesars, or Nottingham Caesars versus Rushmore Knights?
Caesars Rushmore.
Stuart?
Yeah, I'd probably go with Caesars Rushmore based on last season's final table.
I agree with a healthy Calvin Stitt, but because it was a shame that he was injured. Would you rather Solent versus Rushmore or Caesars versus Rushmore?
Caesars Rushmore.
Solent really struggled last year, didn't they?
Not this year.
Yeah, Solent really struggled last year.
Yeah, right. Okay. So we're playing a fantasy game. Don't worry, you're not going to be held to it. And then just on as another option, as an alternative, as an idea, we've got Sandwell versus, let's say, for argument's sake, Leicester. That's making the assumption that Leicester
or Sandwell versus Colchester,
or Sandwell versus Colchester.
Sandwell Colchester.
See, I don't know. All of those are juicy games. To be fair,
yeah,
I think
it's
going to be harsh on a team to say, "Congratulations, guys, you've gone unbeaten for the entire season." You know, whereas in every other season you've been, "Oh, you're promoted already. Don't worry, congratulations." Whereas this going, actually, no, you got one more game. Because someone who might have a little bit of a better roster than you wants to see if they can stay in the division, even though they've lost all games this season.
I also take your point, Isaac, around the fact that based on this, you'll have Division 1 will tend to finish a week earlier than Prem, don't they? So we tend to get 17 weeks in for Prem, and then by the 16th week or the 15th week of this year, Division 1 was finished, wasn't it? But then they've got to go on and play a quarterfinal, a semi-final, and a final before they play the relegated team or the eligible for relegation team out of the Prem, who get potentially 2 weeks off before that game. So I take your point on that. That's logistically slightly off, isn't it? With and probably you could argue someone will say that's unfair, and I think they'd be right to question that, wouldn't they? And then lastly, just to finish off the point, would you have rather done, let's say, for argument's, who would have been the lowest seed? Let's go with, it would have been Oxford Saints versus Colchester or Sandwell versus Colchester.
I think Oxford struggled last season, didn't they?
They conceded 340 points.
Yeah. I think I'd have probably had Sandwell Colchester in that scenario.
Yeah. So I think what we're saying there is that I hope it's right. I hope the games are good. As spectators, that's all I am now. Stuart, you are as well. Okay, you're involved in refereeing, but me and you as spectators, obviously, Isaac, you've got a vested interest in your team. I just hope it doesn't diminish the quality on the field. But it'll be interesting. We'll try and get some comments from Joe, the thinking behind it and stuff. Isaac, go ahead.
The one thing I'd say is it's better than last season when they changed the Div 2 playoffs halfway through the season. It's good that teams now know what's going to happen rather than in the middle of the season, half of Div 2 being like, oh, we might actually make the playoffs this year, and they'll be actually, no, you're not, because we made up a load of new rules.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, it's really good this year, that the fact that they've told us, months in advance.
Yeah. Yeah. And otherwise, that's the only thing that's changed, isn't it? The playoffs are exactly the same, apart from that final's not happening. It's a playoff against it means that the Prem team can't switch off, obviously, or the Div 1 eligible for relegation can't switch off. I take all your points, and good chat there, guys. And we'll probably be able, this is all only got released about 8 hours ago. So we're waiting for all that to sink in, and I'm sure we'll come back to it, and maybe we'll pick up some other points that we've thought of. But we'll also try and get some comments from the community around that throughout the next week or so, and bring them to you. So, should we move on to having a little look at BUCS, doing a little bit of fun rather than talking about rule changes? And sure, we've got plenty of time to break that down between now and April. So let's have a little look then. We had a fantastic week of week 11 results, plenty up and down the country. let's not try and talk through all of them because there's so many this back-ended BUCS season because of all the weather. So Isaac, if you fancy, I'll give you the first dibs at the Prem tier. We obviously saw UE in the National League because we like to focus in on that a little bit more. Got UE 62-0 against Durham. Ouch. And then we've obviously got pretty much a redo of what happened earlier in the season between Loughborough and Leeds Beckett. Loughborough coming out 26-6 against Leeds. That puts Leeds in that let's use a BAFA term, relegation eligible slot, doesn't it? When we do this play in later in the season, and then to fire away with any of the other results that stand out to you in this Prem tier.
Yeah, of course. I'm not surprised by the UE score. They're just taking care of business now, as much as they can until they face Gold in the final week. So no, that'll be that's great for them. Beckett's. I'd have hoped that they'd improved and put a fight up to Loughborough, but that wasn't to be. And also, massive well done to Liverpool, who have got something to fight for now after that win against Newcastle. That's a massive result for them, and to do it in the way they did after not really playing the best this season is quite good for them.
Yeah, and Stuart, we've obviously seen quite a number of developments and a couple of shocks in there, maybe not shocks, surprises. We've now got Warwick, Leeds and Nottingham Trent confirmed in the playoffs within the Prem North. SGS have confirmed their division crown in the south, and Portsmouth and Exeter will be joining them at the moment. Got some funky relegation sort of stipulations coming up this week as well. What stood out to you in Prem tier this weekend?
I think for me, it was probably the points differential in the south. Again, all season, we've had some really close fought games, and SGS weren't really able to pull away from Portsmouth. Again, I haven't seen what the weather conditions were like down on the south coast, but for SGS only to put up 14, again, they've not really fired as they have this season and in previous years. However, they have taken care of business today, which we'll come on to a bit later on. But yeah, the other game, the Exeter Cardiff could really have done with sort of stealing that one, but they've left themselves open. And again, we'll come on to the results from today and how that leaves the other end of the table. But yeah, they're now sort of looking over their shoulder now their season is finished at the point of recording and talking. To see how Birmingham do later on in the season. Yeah,
good on to the Raptors to give them a chance. It's always nice to see someone local to home doing all right, but I'm sure Newcastle will be incredibly disappointed with that result after their NTU surprise the week before. I'm sure we all wondered what would happen to Liverpool in that game, but nonetheless that didn't happen. Let's have a little skip over to tier 1 then. Again, so many games, it's unreal how it all gets backed up, isn't it? We only lost one of them. We lost two in the end, didn't we? So we lost Stirling versus Aberdeen. I wonder whether Aberdeen are done for the year, but so Stirling come away with that walkover win, and then Kent Falcons get a walkover win over Essex as well, down in the south. So Stuart, I'll give you first dibs here. There are a number of zeros, and there are a number of one score single digit games as well, so lots to talk about here in tier 1.
Speaking of one digit games, Bristol 2, Swansea 0. Are we still playing American football, or is this association football? Funnily enough, Swansea seem to have done it all season. They just seem to have not quite got going on offense, and their opposition have just managed to squeak past them. So they may feel a little hard done by. They may also be looking closer to home and going, if only, what could we have done? The Lancers taking care of business alongside Hertfordshire in the Southern 1A. And then Kent just squeaking past UCL in the other game. Just loading up my other screen because I haven't changed the other screen. So yeah, KCL just squeaking past and locking up the championship in the southeast. So congratulations to them. But yeah, Brunel had already locked that up, but again, we'll come on to Hearts. I won't cover it as part of this result. I'll cover it as part of the next one. So, yeah, as you say, lots of zeros. But on the other side, the rest of the games have been pretty close. And maybe it was one of those where we've just found the better teams playing the poorer teams in the division, and then the middle teams just taking care of business to get themselves qualified.
I was just playing around there with the spreadsheet where if you take away the Bournemouth games for Swansea, they've conceded 43 points all season, which is just baffling for a bottom of the division team, right? And obviously they haven't scored a point since their game against Bristol at the beginning of December. So obviously there's other issues there for Swansea, but the 2-0 is actually quite a common theme in that division, isn't it? Because I think there was another one earlier in the season. Looking there was a 7-0 and a 6-0, and Swansea were involved in most of them. So they must be down for tight games in there. In their game. So Isaac, for you, what stood out to you from the Tier 1 from this weekend?
It's the LGMU Northumbria game that really sticks out for me. LGMU's been run over pretty much all season long. Stood up to a Northumbria side who have now won that division. So no, that's quite big for LGMU to say that their season's now over anyways, and they are relegated. It's that still is a big performance that they can take definitely into next year, into next season. And then also Nottingham Green, who have now found a way to score a lot more points, it seems like, and also keep other teams from scoring. So they're not quietly going undefeated anymore. Yeah,
they can't be quietly going undefeated anymore because we've got them, and hopefully we'll be able to share this with you definitely in Isaac's preview as we go along, but also get some things out on socials there around what we're expecting. So if the season ended today, Nottingham Green would be number 1 seed into the playoffs, we think. So they're no longer going quietly. Everyone's watching them, seeing how they get on, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the playoffs, aren't they? In the next couple of weeks, we've had Edinburgh and Napier. They've confirmed champions of their division after their win against Glasgow Tigers 24-0. To your point around Northumbria, they've now clinched the division after that 14-6 win over JMU. It does relegate JMU, unfortunately. And then we've got Leicester and Sheffield Hallam confirmed in the playoffs as well. So congratulations to them. And obviously we already knew about Hull, who've been relegated from that. When it comes to the South, we've got Bournemouth, who we knew were already champs, but we'll talk about the game and the implications there from today. And we think that we've also got King's College have tied up their division, and Kent will be joining them in the playoffs as well. So congratulations to those. And I think, as we mentioned, Swansea being relegated as a part of these results. So yeah, interesting, really interesting. We've got a couple of games to talk about tonight and the implications that had for this tier in particular. But I just want to just zone in on the southeast for a brief second, where we've got 3 teams vying for playoffs and playoff positions now. We've got UEA, who are poised to take on a playoff position there, depending on how Southampton and Oxford do. But we've now got 2 playoff places across the whole of the South in Tier 1. And Bath, Southampton, Oxford, Brighton, and UEA can all take those 2 places. So really looking forward to seeing what happens over the next couple of games to see how they play out in the coming weeks. Let's quickly move on to Tier 2 then. Whew, plenty to be talking about. For once, no home or away walkovers in Tier 2. Isaac, first dibs.
It's Kiel. I know that game means nothing. The game means nothing, but they won it, so it means something to them, I guess. Yeah. That's quite good for them. And York as well, keeping our playoff hopes alive. They're the only team now. Are they in?
Yeah, we think they're in.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about it in a second.
They're the only team that plays 3 weeks in a row now in that division. They're playing every single week against each opponent, which is, since they didn't play till week 8 or 9, it was.
Something like that, yeah.
You can imagine. And also Cambridge, their playoff hopes are still going. So no, it'll be a interesting one to see what happens, especially in that Midlands one, in the Midlands 2, shall I say? Sorry.
Yeah, and over to you, Stuart. We had a bit of a surprise result down in the southeast, didn't we? Which makes that division very tasty going into the next couple of weeks.
You started in the southwest. You started in the southeast. I was going to start in the southwest.
Go ahead.
No. We can talk about the Wolfpack. Yeah, I wouldn't say it came out of nowhere, because I use this cliche pretty much every week, I think. So if you've got your bingo card out, you can mark any given Sunday off your bingo card, especially in BUCS football and in this weather. See, Isaac's doing it. See, have you got a line yet, or are you just on a couple?
Just on a couple.
Just on a couple.
We haven't talked about turf yet.
Not yet.
No, we haven't said turf yet.
Soil, ground, no. At least we're not playing on sand-based AstroTurfs anymore. Jeez, those are the days.
They were awful.
Glasgow, not looking at you.
And just to interrupt again, I was actually thinking about the Greenwich Mariners, but no, go ahead, fire away. I'll talk about the Greenwich Mariners. No, because again, it's got to this point in the season where people could be looking ahead to playoffs and maybe resting and getting their guys that haven't had many reps all season in. So, these sort of results could come out of nowhere. And for me, I was going to call out the Southwest. Bullets beating Aberystwyth by that many. I thought it was going to be a close game, and Bullets obviously haven't played in a little while. So could Aberystwyth keep that going? Would Bullets, be able to just get going? And ironically, we messaged Aberystwyth, didn't we, trying to get that score, because we couldn't find it on. Did you see that?
All afternoon and evening, and they were not too complimentary about their own performance, shall we say? So whoever is in charge of the Aberystwyth socials, maybe don't show your coaching staff what you put. Probably dropping you a bit here, but no,
it wasn't that bad.
We laughed at the pictorial display you put on for us for how badly you lost. And Gladiators Bath Spa doesn't surprise me an awful deal, if I'm honest. Bath Spa tend to struggle, but fair play on them competing every single season. And Gloucester keeping themselves just in contention, I believe.
They
won't be able. No. It's because they've had the forfeited game, haven't they?
Exactly.
So, yeah, they got that win on the board for them. So, Oxford Brookes, that sort of stands out as the biggest one. You mentioned no walkovers, but Oxford seem to have gone down there and absolutely taken care of business against Solent. So, that's kind of the South in a nutshell.
Yeah. And and it's interesting, isn't it? We've in that southern division, we've definitely got that divide, haven't we? We have those top three that probably don't belong there, and those bottom three that potentially do. And it'll be tricky to see who comes out of those, or who comes out of that group to go into the playoffs and potentially get a promotion. I'm still looking towards that southeast. I was surprised, and again, I don't have a lot of inside knowledge into the southeast teams. It's the furthest away from me you could possibly be, so it's difficult to have insight. But to see Kingston not continue their undefeated run, I think that's just a surprise, isn't it? They've taken care of business throughout the year. They've clearly, got a very, very good defense. Even with that 14-point loss, they've only conceded 20 points all season. That's good. And I think, that may have surprised them. Who knows? But it certainly surprised me. But that makes that division very tasty. We can't call anybody division champs yet. We can't call anybody in the playoffs, because there's 4 teams vying for playoff places in that division, which is fantastic. So good luck to Kingston, Greenwich, Queen Mary, and City St George's going into the final couple of games for either of you, because it's all on the line. So we've got Oxford Brookes, we think, in the playoffs. I mean, we've got a number of people vying for the playoffs in the south, but we're pretty sure that there's all but one place locked up in the north, mainly because of the Staff's Kiel situation with their conceded games and the points that they've scored. So the points that they've gained, Staff's only been on 2, Kiel only been able to get to 2. So we think Edge Hill, Lancaster are in, which we've already declared in weeks gone by. We think Sheffield and York and Sunderland are now in. Sunderland or York being in there as third place team. And then the only one that we haven't been able to call yet is whether it's going to be Lincoln or ARU for the Midlands. ARU Lincoln play each other on the last week, I think. Yeah, in a couple of weeks' time. Just can't really call them as in until there's a mathematical gap, but Derby and Cambridge are. So really interested to see how that's playing out, and we'll try and illustrate that for you over the next couple of weeks and make it clear as what we think, and we'll make sure we put the disclaimer on there that this is unofficial. Do not book any travel because when we are not an official outlet. We try to be, but we're not yet anyway. So we'll see how we do. Let's have a quick chat about the results today then. So we had 2 results. It's that time of the season where everybody tries to cram in all those games before the deadline. What are we, Stuart? We've got the deadline for Tier 2 and what is it? What was it? Tier 2 and Prem, North and South is the 12th, and Tier 1 and Prem. No, that's not right. Prem North and South and Tier 1 is the 12th, and then Prem National and Tier 2 is the 19th, isn't it?
19th.
So,
yeah.
So Monday or next Wednesday is the deadline for some of these teams, so they're all trying to cram in, and I think there's some teams who are really going to struggle to get all their fixtures in, isn't there? So there's probably going to be some void results, I can imagine. But I'll open it up to you guys. No shocks really tonight, was there? Just maybe the Southwest, maybe probably a little bit closer than we may have predicted earlier on, but Bristol don't really score that much either, do they?
No, and if Bath are still playing on the same pitch they were 5 or 6 years ago in these conditions, it's an absolute quagmire. So yeah, it's difficult to get an offense going on that field. So that scoreline kind of reflective on that. It's a grass pitch with soil underneath. So long rugby studs on that. It's not turf with rubber crumb underneath or Astro with sand underneath. So
yeah, exactly.
Isaac's now got his line. I'm helping him out. I'm helping him out with being the house tonight.
Stuart Titchmarsh in a minute, I tell you. Isaac's probably too young for Titchmarsh, isn't he? Jesus. We think that these 2 results, specifically the Southwest and Tier 1, that now confirms Bristol are a playoff team. So congratulations to them, having won 5 games and getting to 10 points there. We think that you've secured that second spot, and we think it also qualifies Hertfordshire in the south, because no longer can Bath be a better third place playoff than Hertfordshire, so we think they're in as well. So we'll post that over socials after we've recorded, because we're recording on a Wednesday night, and we'll get that up onto our socials ASAP. Brill, loads have gone on there, haven't they, this week? We've got plenty more to get to. We've got some graphics up on our screen to share as well. This one's a lot easier on the eyes than the ones that are coming up. And Isaac, who previews all of these, is dreading the amount of fixtures that are coming up this week. So, best of luck to you. But on that note, Isaac, we've got some really very interesting fixtures coming up this weekend. Do you have a game of the week in this tier, or something that you're looking out for in the Premier tier?
It's that Warwick-Liverpool game I'm looking at a lot, because there's implications for both sides. Liverpool need a win to stay in the division, whereas Warwick, they're in the playoffs, yes. However, they'd like a better seeding maybe than what they're currently on, or maybe even just to. But yeah, that Leeds NTU game is going to help Warwick a lot, no matter what, if they win or lose. But yeah, no, that Liverpool game, I hope Liverpool can stay up and be an interesting one, definitely, in Warwick.
And Stuart, what about you?
I'm glad Isaac took that game because I'm covering it, so I wasn't going to comment on it at all. Has he got his line? There we go. So I'll go Prem South, and this is probably another one on Isaac's bingo card. I will be looking at SGS Birmingham to try and keep my eye to see whether Birmingham can pull a massive cat out of a bag and find the win that they need to stay up. Because if they don't win, they'll drop out of the Premier tier for the first time in goodness knows how long. And then Pompey Exeter, the flip of the fixture that I called in at. It'd be interesting to see whether that goes the same way. And again, playoff seedings, people wanting to not have to travel for the first round. They'll want to be getting the first and second spots in their respective divisions to make sure they host the playoff games.
Yeah, it's right, isn't it? You've got obviously we haven't touched upon the Prem National for what seemingly is obvious reasons, but Durham against Leeds Beckett, UE versus Loughborough. There may be some large gaps in those score lines, unless obviously UE rest a lot of people ready for a relatively big game happening for them next week. I think it's next week, isn't it? That big finale with Gold. But yeah, to expand on the implications a little bit, you've got Warwick, who are currently sitting in first seed in the division or tier in Premier tier for the playoffs. They'll want to keep hold of that, won't they? They won't want to be overtaken by Leeds for any reason. You've then got Liverpool trying to stay up. They need a win and nothing less. And then, as you mentioned, Exeter, if they can pull off a win, they flip the seedings in the Prem South for the playoffs because they'll overtake Portsmouth, and let alone poor Birmingham trying to travel to SGS Pride, the undefeated team, to try and come away with a relegation scrap at the end of it. That's not going to be a relaxing day for anybody involved in the Birmingham Lions organisation, is it? So interesting to see what's going on there. Let's move on to Tier 1 then. This is a little bit more harder on the eyes. There's a very long list of fixtures, as everybody, as you say, trying to pack them in, especially within Tier 1. This is your last chance to get them in, isn't it? As far as we can tell. We're probably expecting Heriot-Watt Aberdeen not to be played, but we'll wait and see for confirmation on that. But Stuart, what's amongst this pile of fixtures, what's standing out to you in Tier 1? Is there any in particular that you're looking forward to seeing any results of?
You've kind of already touched upon the teams that are fighting for that best third placed spot. And I think Oxford Hearts goes a long way towards that in the Southern. And then there was another one that I spotted in the Southwestern. There's Bristol Bournemouth. There's the top two there. It won't necessarily help seedings, but it'll be a fantastic game to watch because it's two teams that have performed really, really well all season. Bournemouth will want to keep hold of their unbeaten record, so they won't want to lose. But again, do they look ahead and think, okay, can I get a few people, a few reps that they haven't had all season long? So yeah, those are the two from the south that I sort of cherry pick and go, yeah, after I finish my game, I'll look across and have a look at those results.
Yeah, I was looking at that as well. And to your point, mate, is that Bristol could flip this based on if they take that win, which will be easier said than done against Bournemouth, right? Bournemouth are clearly a formidable side this year, but if they can take that, they could potentially change their playoff game from a travel to a top seed to being one of the top four themselves. So currently we've got Hearts. That might have changed after tonight, actually, wouldn't it? But at the moment, so going into tonight, we had Hearts as the 4th seed and Bristol as the 6th seed, which means that you either host a game or you travel, doesn't it? Based on the seeding. So if they do get that win and Hearts do come a cropper for whatever reason against Oxford, then potentially Bristol could go away with this 4th seed and host a playoff game instead. So yeah, just to reiterate your point. But Isaac, what do you think about the Tier 1 games going on this weekend?
Yeah, well, I'll be attending one this weekend.
Nice.
Sheffield Hallam against Nottingham Green. So we're looking forward to that one to see if Nottingham can seal up that the number one seed in the tier. But also, I like the look of the Edinburgh Napier Edinburgh game. I think that's gonna really. Obviously, Edinburgh Napier have already qualified for the playoffs and they're already there. But if they can get a good result there, it's only going to help their, like, I don't know if you call it national rankings, but we'll go with that because it sounds nice. But it'll help their, like, division rankings anyways. So no, that one could be a huge one, and obviously propel them into the playoffs when they kick in.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we don't know who's joining Edinburgh Napier in the playoffs yet. As we mentioned, we've got what's that? 1, 2, 3 playoff positions to go in the tier 1 North, all being battled out by Stirling, Edinburgh, Glasgow, technically Man Met as well, and potentially Manchester, depending on how things fall. I doubt Manchester very much just because of that conceded game that they had earlier in the season. It's probably either going to be Man Met or three Scotland teams in the playoffs this year. So be really interesting to see how that plays out, to your point. And yeah, we'll always love to see Sheffield Hallam Nottingham game, because two great cities colliding there when it comes to sports, isn't it?
A lot of coaches from the Hallam have gone to Nottingham in recent years as well, so it'd be interesting to see what that's like on the sidelines.
Nice. Yeah, brilliant. And Sheffield could still find themselves in a second position, so 4th to 6th seed, rather than a 7th or 8th seed as well. So it is within their interest to try and get a result as well. And let's have a little look then on tier 2 just to finish up the preview. So Isaac, what you're looking at here when it comes to tier 2, which has slightly less games going on this week?
I like the look of this one. This is my favourite graphic so far. There's no games. It's incredible. So Sunderland York. Sunderland's not an easy place to travel. Well, it's not even in Sunderland, but not an easy place to travel to. And York are fighting for the. They have already got in the playoffs, so they're fighting for that another seeding. The next week they'll travel. The week after they still travel to Sheffield, and if they can get a win here, that momentum that'll take from the Sunderland win to the Sheffield win could, serve them quite nicely. But they've got to have this one in hand first. But that one looks like a real entertaining game.
Depends if they're after the division title or not. We don't know what their aspirations were going into the season, but if it was, then they need to keep doing that to keep up with Sheffield, don't they? And then make next week a final, because they haven't played Sheffield yet, have they? Oh yes, they have. They lost to them earlier in the season, so they've still got a 20-point differential to get over, but it gives them a shout, doesn't it? Going into next week. And what about you, Stuart? What are you looking at? There's plenty of games in the south, as well as some great games in the north.
Yeah, they've all got something on the line, because in the south there's only like OBU that have plumbed in their that have punched their card for the playoffs, really. But I'm going to go with their game anyway, because their game against Sussex kind of moves that division around. So either of them could finish top, either of them could finish with 8 points. And, we then look down to tiebreakers and head-to-heads and points conceded. But yeah, if Sussex can get that win, they put themselves through. If they lose, they'll be looking at other results to see if they still make it through. And then the other ones are just a case of people playing for seedings. So who can get the highest seed possible? Plymouth will be looking to sort of maintain the top of the southwest, and then Aberystwyth will be hoping that they can sort of improve their stock in the southwest as well, and their seeding. And it's exactly the same in the southeast. Imperial can't really do an awful lot with theirs, but it'll more be Queen Mary's looking sort of upwards, going, okay, let's see if we can punch our card this week, and get ourselves in as either the number 2 in the division, or as the second or first best third placed team. It's a mouthful to say that tiebreaker bit.
Yeah, I'm just having a look to see if Queen Mary have played Kingston at all. I don't think they have. Oh, yes, they did. They lost to them. So there is a tiebreaker there with Kingston over Queen Mary. But it'll be interesting to see, because you've got Queen Mary who could keep up with those top two. A win this weekend would get them tied with Kingston. They'd be below them on a tiebreaker there, the head-to-head. But then that'll set up a nice little finale next week against Greenwich for Queen Mary to finish off that division. So yeah, I've got my eye on you, South East. It looks really interesting. But to you guys' points, there's division titles up for grabs, isn't there? Derby could seal it with a win. Edge Hill or Lancaster could seal it with a win. York could continue it with a win. There's loads up there. Probably, I haven't done the maths, but probably Plymouth might be able to pretty much tie themselves into the playoffs with a win there as well. So it's a great time to be alive, isn't it? At this time of year with the playoffs. And the season is, we were just saying to each other, weren't we, offline? We're like, and then the season's over. It is just mad how quick this BUCS is going, and then we all kick off again for adult contact and youth and NWFL in a few months' time as well. So it doesn't stop for us, does it? But no, we love it. That's why we're here. So, but yeah, no, brilliant to get your guys' opinions again. Great talk about the news that shook the adult contact world today, and then obviously looking at the BUCS, what's coming ahead down the line for BUCS, and we're looking forward to seeing how that all plays out. Once again, check our socials out: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We're all over it to try and keep you up to date with what's going on in the sport, and otherwise you can listen to our dulcet tones rambling on about certain things across the Britball on a weekly podcast. You can catch us on YouTube as well for this. So for now, thank you very much, Isaac and Stuart, for your time this evening, and thank you to the listeners for listening in. We'll catch you again soon and we'll be back with you next week.